Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at the Thermaltake Swafan EX12 and EX14 ARGB Sync. Now these are a enhanced version, in my opinion, of the previous Swafan EX RGB, which you can see the two here. Now there's a really significant difference with these, so to cut to the chase straight away, the original Swafans, these ones here, the Swafan EX12 RGB, is a little bit confusing actually, because although it says RGB, they are ARGB, but these actually work with the Thermaltake TT Plus RGB software, whereas these new ones work with your traditional 5V 3-pin addressable RGB and a standard 4-pin PWM connector. So if you're looking at building up a PC, putting some really fancy lighting in there, and you really love the idea of the magnetic snap together fans, then this is going to be a very good shout, because this works with basically any addressable RGB system. So whether you're on Asus, MSI, Gigabyte, whatever your choice may be, this is going to work absolutely fine. And even with other addressable RGB controllers from the likes of Lian Li and whoever else, if you've bought a case which has got its own built-in controller, there's a very strong chance it's going to work with it. And this demonstration today, I've actually got this connected up to a very cheap and cheerful GameMax ARGB hub, just to show the flexibility of them. So I'm going to turn these off now so we can take a closer look at the fans. So as I've probably alluded to already, there are two versions of these fans available. Well, technically there's four, because there is a black version and also, as you can see, there is a white version as well. And they both come in two different sizes. So you've got the 120mm or 12 centimeter, and you've got the 140mm or 14 centimeter. Both of these sets come in packs of 3, and they are considerably cheaper than the regular Swafan EX12 RGB, for the reason that you don't need the additional Thermaltake controller which plugs into the USB header. Now there are some slight downsides, so you don't get all of the fancy lighting patterns and techniques that you get from the Thermaltake software, but if you just want your either your statics, your chase colors, all that kind of stuff, it's going to be absolutely fine. And you'll be seeing some examples of the RGB, and of course you've already seen it in the intro to the video. So it's essentially, they are pretty much identical fans. So the only real significant difference is the connectivity, and also obviously the price as well. They still work in exactly the same way. So when you've got your fans, however you want to do them, so maybe you just want to have a single fan in the back of your PC case, maybe you want 2 fans on a radiator, or maybe you want 3 fans all together as an intake on the front of your case, or maybe an exhaust, whatever you want to do, the choice is yours. All the connectivity is included in the box, so it's absolutely ready to go. And you can, of course, if you want to, mix and match. So if you want maybe a couple of black fans up front, maybe a couple of white ones on the top, or you want some 12 centimeters and some 140s all mixed up, you can do basically whatever you want. It makes no difference, but the only downside is they do only come in packs of 3, which for some people may be slightly cost prohibitive. So recently there has been some controversy in the media regarding how these actually work, and it is a relatively straightforward thing, although they seem to be making a big deal about it in the courts, but that's not for us to decide. This is for us to take a look at. So what we've got is 8 pins on here. These are spring-loaded kind of pogo pins, and on the opposite side you've got flat pins for connectivity. So it's a pretty straightforward thing. They essentially daisy chain. So rather than traditionally where you'd have a daisy chain where you kind of snap together some kind of extra piece of wire, these are done magnetically. So there's magnets actually in here and they just snap together. Now fortunately they don't want to go the wrong way, so if you try and put them the wrong way they kind of force themselves against it, so it's absolutely fine. But yeah, the magnetic option I feel is fantastic. Now there is a slight downside to this, which you're possibly seeing from some B-roll I filmed a little bit earlier. Sometimes, because of these pins, they can get dirty or get debris on them, or just simply they're not making an exact connection, which can be a little bit frustrating. And sometimes when you put the magnetic clasp on, sometimes the fans won't light up. But it's really simple. You don't have to go to any great depths. Literally just pull the plug off, push it back on again, and generally it's going to be absolutely fine. And of course, if you're putting these onto some sort of radiator, sometimes when you screw them into the radiator, if it's just slightly offset, maybe the connection comes apart a little bit. Generally, just loosening off the screws slightly and giving it a little wiggle, and they'll all come back to life, which is excellent. So that's how they work. That's how they operate magnetically, which is, again, very easy. And the biggest thing is the fact that, obviously, because they're connected by these pins, there's no wires. which is great. So you can have 3 fans connected and you've basically got 2 wires. A single 5-volt 3-pin addressable RGB header, which is very standard, and also your standard 4-pin PWM. So you can control the fan speeds and the RGB lighting from your motherboard software, from a built-in controller to a case, whatever your choice may be. When it comes to the actual specifications of the fans themselves, so they are actually rated on the box, both the 12s and the 14s, for both the RGB and also the ARGB Sync. They're all rated for 500 RPM as their lowest spinning speed, up to a maximum of 2000 RPM. Now, I've actually done some testing with this earlier on today on my Asus motherboard in the PC behind me, and actually managed to get the RPM actually considerably lower, around about 250. So if you do want extreme quiet, then these are going to be really good. And actually these, even at anything up to around about 1100 to 1200 RPM, are absolutely silent, and I mean deathly silent. You cannot hear them at all. When you up the RPM from that up to maybe 1500, they're audible. When you get up to 2000 RPM, obviously you're moving a lot of air, so you are going to hear that. But generally, because of how good these are, and if you've got a lot of them, you're not going to have your fans ramped up that high anyway. And of course, one of the key things about the Swafan is the fact that the fans are swappable. So as standard, they come out of the box with the traditional kind of airflow or intake style fan. And if you want to swap them, so maybe you've got your fans maybe on the bottom of your case or maybe at the back or wherever it is, and you actually want the blades to be pulling in air, but you still want to see all that lovely RGB. Very simple, very straightforward to do. All you do, grab your fan and push with your thumbs until you hear the click. And there you go. You have now got your frame ready to accept a new blade. And okay, these are very nice translucent blades, and you can grab a reverse airflow model. There is actually included in the accessories various mounting equipment, and also you get some lubricant as well. So these poles, every now and then you want to put a little drop of grease on there just to lubricate them up. But it's really straightforward. Again, you're looking for the click, so put your fan over the top and push, clicks into place, and there you go. You have now got a reverse air fan. So again, depending where you want it, if you've got one of the new maybe CTE cases from Thermaltake and you've got a load of these at the bottom, then you can have these pushing up air into the path of your graphics card, which is super helpful. Now, I know some of you are still going to be a little bit confused about how this all works, so let's take a look at the connectivity. So when it comes to connectivity, basically it's your standard stuff here. So 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB with a pass-through. So you've got the female version there. There's also a male pass-through, so you can connect up additional items after. And you've also got your 4-pin PWM, very standard connection. And on the other end of that, you have this magnetic connector. So again, all you do is line it up with the pins, which are here, and it just snaps on. So that is it. That is your fans connected to your PC. So you have your PC wired. You've probably seen this for some B-roll I shot a little bit earlier on, but it's so simple. And literally, because you have got all 3 of your fans all daisy chained together with the aid of magnets, literally this is all the wiring you need to do. So it does simplify that a lot. If you've got a relatively small case or you're just not that keen on cable management, this is going to save you an absolute ton of hassle. Something else I will add into this, which Thermaltake will possibly not approve of me saying, but what the heck, I'm going to say it anyway. If you're possibly one of the people that were early adopters and you've got the Swafan EX12 ARGB, which actually did come with the Thermaltake controller, which you're possibly seeing for some B-roll we shot. These are actually backwards compatible and these are kind of forwards compatible. So if you actually want to save a little bit of money and maybe you actually do want to be in the Thermaltake ecosystem in terms of controlling your RGB, and you probably will do because it's actually a really good ecosystem, you can actually buy the cheaper version of the fans, which doesn't come with the controller, if you've already got the controller, and you can use them. So they are cross-compatible. So for those of you that are wondering if those 8-pin connectors on the end are all wired the same, I'm very happy to say that they absolutely are. So I've managed to take some of my new ARGB Sync fans and connect them up to my Thermaltake hub, which I've got in my PC, and vice versa. So I've taken some of these and connected them up with the new cables. So they are going to be cross-compatible. So don't worry about if you've invested some money already in one or the other and you want to make the switch. It's very simple and very straightforward to do, and of course all the wiring is included. Something else I feel we should clear up as well is actually how many fans can you daisy chain. Now officially Thermaltake are saying 3, which kind of makes sense, 360mm rad. Technically with the ARGB Sync you can add on more. My only concern would be, obviously there's 20 LEDs in each one of these, so the amps and the wattage is creeping up. So do be careful. Because they are daisy chainable, you can add a fourth, maybe a fifth, maybe a sixth if you really, really want to. Just make sure that your motherboard is able to take care of that and actually deliver enough power through it. And again, if you're using hubs, that sort of thing, make sure that they're compatible and able to do so. It doesn't really make a great deal of difference because the RGB is going to go from 1 to 2 to 3, etc, etc. Unlike it would do with the Thermaltake TT RGB software, which is hard limited to 3 fans per daisy chain. So yeah, just wanted to kind of try and clear it up a little bit. Your mileage may vary depending on your motherboard, your controller, etc. if you're going with the ARGB Sync versions. So overall, my final thoughts on this, wrapping up, is I think this is actually a fantastic addition to their range. And also potentially there might be an upgraded version of other fans in the Thermaltake range coming forward, such as the CT range. They might be getting the magnetic treatment, so keep an eye out for those if you want to save a little bit of money, because they are going to be a little bit cheaper. But these are certainly premium fans. You are going to pay somewhat for the privilege, but if you go with the ARGB Sync versions, you do save a considerable amount of money against the 12 RGB and the 14 RGB, because these do come with that additional controller, which is an obvious extra cost as well. But overall, I think these are great. Sound and actually air, they move a ton of air. Absolutely great for radiators, for intakes, even for putting onto a CPU cooler. So if you've got a favorite CPU cooler which you really, really want to use, but you're tired of seeing that tired old RGB fan, you can quite easily use one of these. They do actually come with 3 of the connectors actually in the box as well. So you can, if you want to, use all 3 fans separately. So maybe one is an intake, one is an exhaust, and maybe one on your CPU cooler. The choice is down to you. The cabling is included for that. Or again, if you want to, you can just snap them all together and use them as a single pack. Very flexible, very enjoyable. I like these a lot, and the RGB I think looks very, very nice, very vivid. And again, there's loads of LEDs in here, so it does make quite a statement. I'll leave links for these in the video description below. Now I'll try not to confuse it too much, so I'll put the ARGB Sync ones, and I'll put a note on there saying standard and 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB, and I'll put a link underneath that as well for the traditional Swafan EX12 RGB that comes with the controllers, so you can kind of see which one suits your particular needs the best. But overall, I think these are great fans. I really love them, and these are going to be going into the PC behind me very shortly, so stay tuned to see how all that goes. But I think that's going to pretty much wrap this one up. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content of this on a daily basis, then maybe consider hitting that subscribe button, then the chime notification. That way you'll be notified of all future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.